So good morning or good night, depending on where you are, and welcome to another video of the Shield on a Couch. And we're celebrating 30 years of L7-Bricks Are Heavy. And I got Kate here from the band Nott with me so we can talk about the album. So Kate, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, a little bit sore throat, but I'm good. So, this is a band that I remember I saw the name in the 90s and I listened to some songs, but I wasn't like huge into them because I think I got more like in after that. But yeah, this is the album Bricks Are Heavy. It came out in April of 1992, so it turned 30 this year. And I know that the band is touring in support of it. And the first thing when I think of L7 is I remember the tampon incident.
Yeah, the tampon incident. I remember that too.
They were at 1992 in Reading and people were throwing stuff at them. So, so she threw the bloody tampon at them, which
Yeah,
I think is rock and roll as hell.
it's really, yeah, it is rock and roll as hell. I saw them at I can't even remember what it was, some weird outdoor festival in Cleveland in the mid 90s. And it was like thunderstorming crazy. And they insisted on continuing to play until I think the police were finally like, no, this is too dangerous. There's lightning. I mean, and they were rock and roll, man. They still are.
Yeah, yeah.
But
When
yeah, the tampon incident, the David Letterman incident,
what happened there? I don't remember that one.
they played, I want to say they played Pretend We're Dead, which was their biggest single at the
Hmm.
time, and then like trashed the whole stage. And it was so rock and roll. And
Oh
at the
yeah, they
time,
were
people were
cool
like, these women destroyed the stage, right? And it's like, dudes have been doing this for 50 years.
for forever. So
Right.
yeah, so this is an important album, not only because they were one of the first like all female musician bands, because like I know some people say other bands like Kitty. I'm like, no, they were before, they were in the 90s. And they weren't soft, they had attitude. They were punk rock as hell. And
Yeah.
this album, like, I'm glad you got me to listen to this album again because this is one kick-ass album. Like,
Yes.
it's 37 minutes of raw punk rock energy. And I remember they were lumped in with the Seattle scene. I don't know why. They
Well, I
don't
think
sound
because,
grunge to me.
well, I mean, as I was listening to it for purposes of this video, I was thinking, okay, I can see how they appealed to a grunge audience,
Hmm.
mostly in the production. Um, like Butch Vig produced this record and he did Nevermind. So
Yeah.
there's some, especially in the guitar sounds, I can see the grunge thing. And I think, in fact, I know Donita Sparks, the co-lead singer, was friends with Cobain. And so they were photographed with Nirvana. I think they toured with Nirvana on the West Coast at one point. But yeah, I mean, this is just so much more. It's not quite metal. It's not quite punk.
Yeah,
It's
it's like a combination of like
mhm,
grunge with punk alternative,
totally.
uh totally lots of attitude. So yeah, like, so on these videos, we usually, when I do these videos with some people, we talk about like what we thought when it came out.
Yeah. Okay.
We pick our favorite songs and then we say how it has held up over the years. So
I remember
for
that from
you,
the
Kate,
L7 video. Yeah.
what are your initial memories of listening to this album back in the day?
I first heard or actually saw on 120 Minutes. Yeah, I
Oh,
was a
that show, I
teenager.
loved it.
I was a teenager in the 90s and I loved 120 Minutes and it got me into so many great bands. And I remember seeing the video for Pretend We're Dead, their first single, which is just, I mean, catchy as hell. That guitar hook, everything about it is great. And seeing the video and going, wow, these are all women. Because that was at the time, I mean, you had the Go-Go's who were a punk rock band once, right? But
They're too
it's
happy.
like super, like 92 is like hair metal, just dudes, sausage fest everywhere. and and to see them on 120 minutes, and the song was so catchy. And I think again, 92, I probably bought it on cassette, and just listened to it, like the hearing Orgasm the first time and just being like, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this before. And then my second memory of the record is that it was playing when I got in my very first fender bender. I just got my driver's license and backed my car into the library truck that transports the books. And my friend was in the car, and we still laugh about that to this day. So every time I talk to her about L7, she's like, the library van. And I loved it. I mean, it felt more raw to me than most of the Seattle scene at the time.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
it just had like this super LA vibe. I don't know. I think
They are from LA. Yeah.
they are from LA, and the vibe is in the music. Yeah. So that's what I remember from the first time hearing them.
Yeah, I like what you said that, 92. The good thing about 1991, 1992 is the year that they were shifting from all the hair metal to the more like
Yeah.
Seattle and more music that was more in your face. It wasn't like all polished, like because those hair bands, they got so
Yeah.
fucking old. Like
They
they
sure
were
did.
like, yeah, oh my God, like how many songs can you sing about someone being 17? They all sounded the same.
They did. They did all sound the same. And I feel bad, like, because Tommy Lee is a legit good drummer, right? But most of them, I mean, yeah, it's all the same. I
Oh
remember in
yeah,
the 80s, I had a friend whose mom worked with the guy from Warrant's mom, and that was like cool once, and then it just suddenly became so not cool. Like, you need to
very
stop telling people about that, because
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and I think L7, even in contrast to like, and I always think Pearl Jam and Nirvana, they weren't, it's not as emotive, right? There are characters in these songs. It's not, I mean, I
Yeah,
think about the lineage from punk to grunge, and punk being like really in your face and raw and not at all like introspective or emotive. And then grunge is kind of more feely.
yeah,
Um,
Eddie Vedder's all like,
right, right. And I mean, and Cobain did it in such a raw way, but L7 never did that. They were just kind of like, here we are. We're gonna rock for 40 minutes and then
yeah.
throw a tampon at you and leave.
Yeah, I would actually, if the four of them, I would meet them in an alley, I would be scared because they could kick my ass.
I don't know that they would.
No, I don't know if they would, but they had that attitude. And
They
when you look at the
definitely
pictures, like they look tough as hell.
they do.
And this was, they came like at the same time, like that hole was,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think they, and I like that the songs are unapologetic. They're in your face. They're catchy, but they're punk rock as hell. So uh, I remember L7. The album that I remember was "Bricks Are Heavy." I think some of my friends had it, and I listened to it. I never bought it physically. I don't know why. No money.
Sure.
But after this, it's a name that I always remember seeing, and uh, I also saw them in 120 minutes. That program was just great.
Good. Yeah.
Uh, Especially when they had Matt Pinfield on.
Oh
That
yeah.
dude, like
He
to
was
this day,
amazing.
like he's like an encyclopedia of knowledge. Like he knows so
Yeah.
much. So it's amazing. And when he interviewed bands, like he
Mhm.
asked the questions that no one asked, like not superficial, like he actually knew stuff. So this album, I can't sit here and say like, oh yes, I listen to this all the time because I did not back in the day. I was young, but I've been listening to this the last 2 weeks a lot, and it's so good. It's an album that every song is catchy,
Yeah.
uh, and I like it. You mentioned "Pretend That We're Dead," and yes, I think I see what they released that as a single because It's so catchy, and I
Mhm.
saw like live performances of them of it, and it's the guitar on it, the way they sing. So it was a great single uh, to talk about this album, and also the fact that this album came out after Nevermind, right? Because Nevermind came out in 1991, so they got Butch Big. So I'm thinking having Butch Big as a producer,
Mhm.
everyone wanted to work with him after Nevermind, and I can see why, because he brought like the raw energy of bands,
Well, he
like
did,
really
and
good.
his guitar sound, like I remember you and I talking a while ago about Siamese Dream, which he also
Yeah,
produced, right? And he's got like, I mean, the dude can layer like 8 guitar tracks and have it sound completely good. And here I don't hear that, right? This sounds much more upfront, like rhythm lead. But yeah, like it's like at that moment in time you knew you made it if your label was going to bring in Butch Vig to produce you.
oh yeah, you were like, okay, I'm in.
Right.
So yeah, so what are your favorite tracks out of this album, Kate?
Man. I I gotta say, I sing shit list on a regular basis, just like places if I'm at work and something has gone wrong, right? It's like shit list is the song that's sort of always in my head. And I think we have to remember that there was a moment in the late 90s when that song got really scary because of Columbine, etc. And I don't really think that Danita Sparks has any intention of committing violence against the people on her list, right? But just that when I get mad and I get pissed, I grab a pen and I write out a list of all you assholes who won't be missed. I sing it all the time, like all these years later. So that song is perpetually in my head. Scrap is telling a hell of an interesting story. And I love the way she enunciates garage. Like I get stuck on the way she says garage in that song. Um, those two, Orgasm has like that sort of mathy bass line.
Yeah,
Those are the two that really stand out, but honestly, I could like sing along to the whole record and
yeah. You
feel good
mentioned three
about it.
because you mentioned Wargasm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
But
good, and
Pretend We're
yeah,
Dead is like just so catchy. I can't ignore that. So there's 4.
yeah, they're four. What's Scrap about?
Uh, well, it begins. I met a skinhead named Scrap. He lived in my friend's garage, is how she says it. And she kind of rolls the R. I mean, it's pretty great. So to me, and I
I
did not
wonder
know
if
this
it's like a
song.
Boston accent.
It could be, but they're LA, right? So it's like
Yeah,
this, and this brings me to the sense of humor that L7 has. But I think Scrap is about a dude who lives in a garage. He's a skinhead. He lives in some garage. He's a paint huffer, which in the 90s was like a really popular way to get high.
yeah.
Uh,
I
and
wonder
then
if
the religious folks come along in the van, right? And he goes with them and finds religion, which I sort of feel that she's equating that with huffing paint. And then that doesn't go well, and he comes back, but the garage is gone. So what does he do, right? And it's just I don't know. It's like I can imagine this whole scene. And again, the way she says garage just gets me.
yeah, I think it's intentional in a way.
Mhm.
So for me, if I if I have to pick 3 songs, I think Diet Pill is interesting.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was like reading through the lyrics, like she's is like the diet pill, and something that this song can come out now and with the body conscious and everything, and I think it still resonates to this day. And when you have
Totally.
a song that resonates 30 years later, you written something that that
Would
it can come out now. And yeah,
would people know the Calgon Take Me Away reference? Because you remember the Calgon commercials from the 90s? It was like the stuff you put in your bath, and Calgon would take you away. It's just saying Calgon can't take me away.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
don't know if they would.
I don't know if people would get it, but yeah, like it's in terms of subject matter, it's totally on point.
Yeah, yeah, but when they say references of stuff from the 90s, maybe kids today are like, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. But yeah, like you, I think shitless, it's great because who can't relate to being pissed and putting like, I'm putting you on my shit list. And it's a song that I think it's a fan favorite live. Pretend We're Dead is just catchy as hell, so I liked it. And I think Wargasm really starts the album well, but like you said, there's no weak tracks on this album, and it's 37 minutes, so it goes by pretty fast. It's a punk rock type of album. So yeah.
Ooh, I just accidentally started playing Workasm. There we
Yeah, I'm like, what is that?
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's a
37 minutes of just energy.
of energy. And right, 30 years later, how do you think this album has held up?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a rock and roll nerd. So to me, it has, I mean, I think production wise, we'd want more low end. Um, but I think it has held up. There's certain things, and again, I think it's a low end thing for me, but I love a lot of low end. Um, I think it does. I mean, there's a lot going on, I mean, they think about like overturning Roe versus Wade, right? Like this is a
Hmm.
group that began rock for choice in the 90s. And
I
they're just
remember that.
yeah, they're unapologetically, and I know this is a dirty word in some circles, but they're unapologetically feminist, and they still are. They got real tired of being asked, how is it to be a woman in rock? Right? Like, how about you
Yeah,
just,
everyone asked that question.
they still do. They still do ask women that
Yeah.
question.
I
Uh,
don't when I interview
no, you
people.
don't. I keep coming back. That
Because
that
they're
tells you
so
something.
stupid. Like, oh, come on. Like, why would
It
would you
is.
ask like a guy, like, what does it feel to be a man in a band? Like,
No. Um, and I don't know. I think it does hold up. I mean, I think there are things about it that make it sound like a 90s record, but
but that's a good
90s
thing.
nostalgia is a thing now.
Oh yeah.
You know, I don't know. I'd be interested to play it for like a group of younger people,
Yeah.
and
I
see.
wonder like if in 10 years there'll be like 2000 nostalgia. I think that we have that now, but I think the 90s, I don't know if we're biased because we're more from the 90s. It was a beautiful time.
Mhm, mhm.
Like there's so many like great albums from the 90s, and I think to me that and the 70s are considered the best eras of music.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's interesting music coming out now. The production values are completely different because you can make a professional sounding record in your basement, right?
I could do a record.
You could. You totally could. I mean, and that's I just had this conversation with a group of young people not pretty recently, like this idea that we were talking about the band Wet Leg,
Oh
and
yeah, I
this allegation that they're an industry plant. And it's like, what does that even mean? Because every band, like until 2012, by that definition, was an industry plant, because what it means is they're supported by the record industry,
well, you
right?
gotta make
And
money.
not totally DIY. Like they were given money to make a record and they made it. And I think like, okay, so by that definition, Zeppelin was an industry plant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it holds up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it helps up. And uh I just like going through their catalog. They had an album in 2019.
They did. Yeah, and they
Yes.
wrote a hilarious song about Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, Scatter the Rats. And
Yeah, I think
something that
they're
I like about them is that they stay true to their sound. They don't give
totally.
a fuck.
They
And
don't.
like if you listen to the album after that, Hungry for Stink, they didn't tone it down.
No,
They
that's
kept
another
that
really
raw.
good record.
Yeah, they kept that raw energy. Unfortunately, at the time, I don't know what happened. They were huge with Bricks Are Heavy, and then like that happened a lot. People fell out of love with them, and I think they should have gotten more recognition that they didn't get
I agree.
for being pioneers,
Well, and for being genuinely funny, like they
tongue in
have a
cheek.
sense of humor, like
Yeah,
right. So yeah, on Hungry for Stink, they've got that song Andre that was the lead single. And that is also about some dude and it tells a story, right? So they're like telling these stories probably about not necessarily people they know, but composite characters. And it's just it's good narrative. Slap Happy from 99 is a really weird album that I think should have gotten more attention. And I don't know what happened
yeah.
between
I'm gonna listen to more L7. Believe
maybe
me.
the women in rock novelty wore off between 92 and 94, but then they came back, right?
Yeah,
Like they're on this
but you
tour.
know what? Also, they had like No Doubt and other like they were feminine, but they were like more commercial.
Yeah, we
They could sell them. Yeah,
can't have too many women in rock, right? We have to meet the quota and then
apparently.
I
Uh,
joke.
yeah, I know that's stupid. Like when I listen to music, I don't care if they're like, women or men. I
I
just
don't
care if
either.
it's good. And right
Exactly.
now, actually, when I have my top 20 this year, there's a few bands that I have there that the singers are women and they're amazing. Uh, um, so, but yeah, that will be in the future. So, yeah, for me, Bricks Are Heavy. It sounds if this would come out now, I think it sounds as great as it did in 1992.
Mhm.
I think that they needed to be bigger, and maybe it was a industry bias back at the time. Like I don't know why, but yeah, it's a great album. It's held up. I like the tongue-in-cheek humor that they have. I like the I don't give a fuck attitude. Like there should be more bands like that because no, like there's a lot of bands like no, we need to like a formula and something. So I think they were unapologetic and playing their own sound, and I still they still are. And I would actually, I think this is are you going to see this tour? Are they
I
going near
missed
you?
I missed the show in Detroit. I was
Oh,
planning on going and I cannot remember why. It was earlier this month, but I just didn't make it over there and I'm sad about it. But
it's
I
a
saw
ball.
them a few times in the 90s. So I feel
Nice.
okay about that.
Yeah, I actually think they played in one of the first Lollapaloozas, if I'm not mistaken.
You might be right. That might be the
Yeah,
first time.
I think they played in one of the Lollapalooza. I don't know, it's maybe 92, 93, but I think they played in the Lollapalooza.
I think you're right. I think they were second stage.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah,
and then
so
yeah, the weird music festivals in the middle of nowhere in the 90s at fairgrounds was just this show that I remember. They also I remember seeing them open for somebody big, but I can't remember who it was. Right? So it's like at the time the record company was trying, putting them on these bills with way bigger bands and I don't know. I mean, I think what would happen if we had like never developed this whole idea that women playing rock and roll is a novelty, right? Because
yeah.
they're a legit good band. Like they play their instruments well.
Well, I never understood because I don't think it has anything to do with gender on how you play.
I don't
One
either.
has hands, people. Like the hands are the same. Like you, like I don't know what the whole deal is. Like
I don't
we,
either.
every instrument is played with hands, and hands are the same.
You're right.
Like, but yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I think L7 Bricks Are Heavy is a great album that it has held up, and I'm actually going to be listening to more L7
All right.
uh,
I'm glad to hear it.
because there were so many bands and sometimes they fall under the cracks. But from them, I really remember that album. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you told me, hey, let's talk about this album. So I had to revisit it. Like,
I pulled it out of nowhere, right? I was thinking, all right, anniversaries. Oh, they're on tour right
yeah,
now. Well, hey, I hope your subscribers will give it a spin too, because it's a good record.
yes, people need to listen to this album. So We want to know, people, what are your earliest memories of L7 Bricks Are Heavy? What are your favorite tracks, and how would you rank it in the L7 discography? We would really want to know. And also, don't forget to subscribe and give me a like. I'm nearing 500 subscribers. This was actually, that was my goal for the year. I went to 500 and up, and we got more stuff coming, more interviews. So, and also, Kate is a musician. Check out her project Nott, which I also interviewed her, and she'll probably be more on the channel, and we'll talk about like more albums, because it's fun because she's a musician, so she can say things that I don't know, me not being a musician.
I sometimes I say things I don't know, right? But there we go.
That happens to everyone. So people, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield on a Couch, and we'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you. Good night.